punks are one of the most well-known alternative subcultures, known for being anti-capitalist and having viewpoints on individualism, animal rights, and anti-corporations. A month before the 2020 election, photos of Johnny Rotten from the Sex Pistols were spotted of him wearing a MAGA t-shirt. This set Twitter off on a storm that revived the Trump is punk, leading to self-proclaimed punks on TikTok starting to turn to more conservative ideals. Can they really rage against the same machine they're a part of, though? Hi! My name is Jaden, and I make commentary videos on culture, media, and kind of whatever's going on in the world that I feel like yapping about. And this video was actually inspired by another YouTuber called Cal Does Life. They made a video called Punks for Trump. I think they actually made two videos, sorry. They were kind of talking about the conversation where a lot of punk kids on TikTok have been talking about how Trump is the new rebellious punk leader, and he's so hardcore and punk and rebellious, and he sticks it to the man. And I wanted to share my thoughts on this conversation, so let's get into it. Quick disclaimer before we dive into this topic: don't send hate to any of the people in these videos or that are talking about this conversation. Whether you agree or disagree with their political views, politics is always a messy conversation. However, when you try to drag subcultures into it that were created based off of very opposite ideals compared to what these people in the subculture are now trying to align with, it kind of skews the whole message and point of the subculture to begin with. Let's start with a quick history lesson, shall we? The punk subculture originated in the 1970s in New York in 1974 and the United Kingdom in 1976. Punk political ideologies are most concerned with individual freedom and anti-establishment views. Keep these in mind. Common punk viewpoints typically revolved around anti-capitalism, individual liberty, anti-authoritarian, DIY, ethical and non-corporate purchase clothing, anti-government, anti-discrimination, and not selling out or supporting the big man, the government, and corporate greed, or people against the LGBTQIA+ community, or being racist, okay? Just keep these in mind. That is a very important history lesson from the 70s. I would also like to mention that the fashion of punk is not as important as a lot of people seem to think it is. The entire subculture is based off of a movement, not a fashion statement. The punk movement is about fighting for what you believe in, letting people be individual, have their own ideals, and helping the community around you, and letting people be who they are and staying true to themselves, and fighting against corporate greed, capitalism, and racism. Typically, punk bands are not under big record labels that are manufacturing their image to make them blow up and become rich and famous, because that kind of goes against the whole point, which is why a lot of OG punk bands did not sign under a big record label. I would also like to note that although punks do not typically align with either liberals or conservatives or Republicans, depending on what part of the world you're in, whatever, I say liberal and conservative. I think in America it's different, whatever. Punks do not align with either side as they are their own category. However, most of their ideals and beliefs and stuff they fight for do lean more towards the left, which is liberal, and not so far to the right, which is conservatism. The whole point of punk is to go against conforming to being stuck in a bubble and not having the freedom and self-expression to be who you are and to let everyone live as their true selves. Thank you for listening to my lecture. Professor Jaden. It's now done. Yes, these are prescription glasses, by the way. I am blind. I just don't wear them on camera because they make a weird glare. No one cares. Whatever. Now that we got that little history lesson out of the way, let's see what's going on in the current day and age of the 21st century, the year 2025. TikTok. It's always TikTok, okay? I swear, I haven't made a single video talking about anything going on in the world that does not intertwine TikTok into the conversation, because TikTok is the epitome of existence. I swear, like, it is false information, fake life, whatever. It irks me, but we all use it because we're all brain rotted. Now, what is the kind of content that was going on TikTok after Johnny from the Sex Pistols, major sellout, was wearing a Make America Great Again t-shirt? Well, a lot of people, because everyone is under the assumption that the Sex Pistols are a quote-unquote punk band, despite the fact that they're not, but that's a conversation we'll dive into a bit later. A lot of people who like to dress alternative, keyword dress, started making TikToks talking about how Trump is super punk and how he's a rebel. Yeah, their argument that these people are pointing out is that punk is to go against what's popular, and since the more left side was in control for a while, people are like, okay, so it's punk to go against that, meaning that Trump not wanting to have equal rights and support marginalized communities and all that, it makes him punk and rebellious and cool. Which, when you think about it, it's like, no, that's not how it works, because the punks from the 70s and 80s were fighting for these specific things because they wanted these changes to be made. Like, they didn't fight against it because that's not what was popular. They're fighting against it because they're reasonable humans that just wanted the best for people. They didn't care if it was popular or not. They wanted it to become more recognized and more respected, so people that were outcasted and hated on and discriminated for could actually be respected and loved and cared for, and people wouldn't have to be stuck in the machine that is the government. A lot of these TikTok punks, they don't know the history, and that it really gets me. If you dress alternative, at least do your research into the alternative subcultures and know the messages and what it means to be a part of that subculture. It's fine if you like the style, but at least be knowledgeable on the history and know what you're representing if you're dressing a specific way. That is important. Yes, the fashion is not entirely a part of the subcultures, but it still has that message, okay? Like, it just, And then the fact that a lot of these people are just wearing clothes from like Shein and Temu. Those are fast fashion brands. They are horrible. And like, that's not to say that, yes, I myself have purchased from fast fashion in the past before I fully understood. I didn't really learn about how harmful that industry was until I actually went to fashion design school. And that's what made me realize, like, oh, I'm not going to support fast fashion anymore because this is atrocious, horrible for the environment, horrible for people working in these horrible conditions. I didn't want to be a part of that, which is why since then I've only gathered clothing through like thrifting. And yeah, I still have some of the pieces I did buy during that time because it would be wasteful to just throw them away. Now I have them and I can DIY them, I can repurpose them, and I'll still wear them, and I can just make modifications. And yeah, I feel guilty from when I was purchasing it, but then I remind myself that like I didn't know any better, and maybe these people don't either, which is fine, but there's so much information online now, it's not hard to figure these things out. And then when you're thinking about like major punk bands as well, most of them are pretty anti-conservatism. Anti-conservative? I think that's right. That's the right word. That's the right synonym? I don't know. Bands like Rage Against the Machine, Pennywise, Green Day, and no, I don't know if you're actually supposed to pronounce it as Nofix or Nofx. I've never known, okay? I'm sorry. However, they have made songs and albums literally focused on being anti-conservative. Example being Pennywise has a song called F Authority, and a lot of these bands in general have songs and albums just about how they don't support conservatism or discrimination, and yeah, they definitely don't align with Trump's ideals now, do they? And circling back to like the whole fashion part of it as well, a lot of punk bands didn't even dress in the style. So just because you're dressed in a certain way doesn't mean that's your ideals. You could be wearing a pink frilly tutu and a tiara and still be punk because it's a subculture. It's like mostly around your ideals and beliefs. It's not just like fashion focused. One of the biggest arguments you hear from these types of people is that Trump is anti-establishment, therefore making him punk. How does a white New Yorker man who was born into wealth qualify as anti-establishment when he only associates with billionaires and criminals? He gifted millions of dollars from his daddy to raise stuff, to build his estate, to build his empire, his cults. Not saying that's true, that's alleged, but cult. I don't see anything scrappy or rugged or ethical or meaningful coming out of this guy, okay? Not a single part of him. Does he break established norms? Yes, he does. However, he's breaking the established stuff that people were trying to make well known and recognized before it was accepted. Okay? So what are some of these rebellious and super cool punk stuff that Trump was doing that makes him so punk rock? Let's take a look. I have a little list. Let's start off with, I don't know, maybe his international and domestic democracy fueled by capital greed. Very punk, huh? Or maybe when he tried to force Canada to become another state and then started a tariff war, and now us innocent Canadians have to pay an extra 25% off on American items, and all of our grocery stores now have signs that say Canadian made, and they're refusing to accept anything coming from America because he's doing us dirty. Oh, maybe that time when he wanted to ban gay marriage and pronouns, and he also considered people that are literally born without a gender to not be real, and forcing transgender people to go by their birth pronouns. Oh, we can't forget all the war and violence he's trying to start too, right? Yeah. And his opinions on Gaza and Israel. So punk. Oh, what about that time he appointed Elon Musk to work with him? We all know Elon Musk, that rich billionaire. Yeah. You know, he only does seem to associate with the rich, powerful, and wealthy. Because that totally aligns with the original beliefs of punks, right? Right? Am I missing something here? Is history lying to me? I don't know. Just because someone is rude and blunt and being anti-establishment and forcing their ideals and using their wealth and power to control people and police them and make them conform does not make them punk, okay? Like, that's completely the opposite of the entire meaning of that entire subculture. Everything he's doing is literally the opposite, and I can't make that more clear. He's not letting people be individuals. He's not letting people be honest. He's not letting people identify how they identify. He's trying to make them conform. He's trying to run everything based off of greed. He's trying to separate people, families. He's trying to promote war and genocide. None of this is okay, and none of this aligns with anything. It is impossible to be against individualism and freedom when you are a ruthless, wealthy dictator. Like, you can't. That's not how this works, okay? All he does is push super traditional ideals and think that, like, the LGBTQIA plus community and anyone who is not a white man doesn't deserve anything. He is against feminism. He's against LGBTQ plus communities. He's against other races. He's against everyone, and he only cares about America, which, like, sure, he's the president. I get that. It's the country he wants to run and support. But you can't run a country and not be civil with all the other countries in the world and cut people out and push them away just because they don't fit your traditional values. Also, for those that are going on about Johnny Rotten from the Sex Pistols being punk and conservative, let me remind you that this band is literally a laughingstock in so many communities because they are the equivalent of like a boy band from like the X Factor being like formed together by a record label and marketing a certain persona to people. Okay, like they were sellouts since before they even started, and anyone can tell you that. Literally, like a 2-second Google search could tell you that. Like, I don't care if this guy is buying his Make America Great Again shirt because he's not even part of the subculture. No one in the subculture likes this man, okay? He's a sellout. And yes, that's not to say that other punk bands also aren't sellouts. That's a different thing though, because this was a manufactured band created for a specific persona and it was all about making money. Whereas other bands like Green Day, as an example, did a ad with Pepsi at one point. That was like one ad, and yeah, I get it. It's the industry. You have to make money. You can't solely just make money by doing music, unfortunately. It's not livable, and it sucks that people do have to do that, but at the end of the day, they have bills to pay. However, there's still a lot of other punk bands that do not do any like ad placements or work under a big label name because they want to stay true to their values and their beliefs. But also keep in mind that fame and money change people. So the more rich and successful someone gets, the more their ideals will shift and they will see themselves all the way up here and they'll see everyone else all the way down here, and then they won't care about their original beliefs. We've seen fame change so many people over time. I swear fame is like a disease and money is a disease because it really affects people and does like a whole 180 on someone's personality and ideals. And it's really sad to see. What are your thoughts on this conversation? Do you think because Trump goes against the previous established politics that it now makes him punk? Or do you think that you can't change the original background of a subculture that was created off of these established views? Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments down below, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!